Hi again, it's Karen Volo, Chief Joy Bringer and Director of Evolution Academy, where we're bringing joy to the workplace. And today's video, I want to share with you about building trust. And the interesting story behind this is, I'll share this first, is because we certify people in cultural engagement at Evolution Academy. And as people have been going through our training, and we talk about the neuroscience of trust and engagement, they asked us, can't you just take this one block here and teach it to leaders because they desperately need this stuff? And what we have found is that this level of trust is lacking. We see it all over the world, actually. If we look, take it to a societal level with politics and all sorts of different things where there just isn't that level of trust. We have a lot of distrust out there. When we've been talking about these cultural keys and working with the culture strategically, I've mentioned in the earlier video that it needs to be built on a foundation of having that bigger purpose. But underlying that, we also need to have this bottom foundational structure inside of an organization that is built on trust. So you've got to have trust on all levels. You've got to have trust with the employees to the management. You've got to have trust to the employees with each other. You've got to have the company, having trust with their customers. You've got to have trust to the shareholders. You've got to have trust to the partners, to your suppliers. There's just, trust needs to be everywhere right now. And how do you build trust? Well, Stephen M.R. Covey wrote The Speed of Trust and a couple of books on trust, and he's doing this amazing research on trust. And what he has found is that if you have an organization that has a high level of trust, it actually saves money. They've actually been able to measure it down to the bottom line, because if you have a high level of trust, you're able to get things implemented faster, which actually brings the cost of doing things down. And the opposite is true. If you have a high level of distrust in an organization or a low trust organization, the time it takes to implement things is much greater, which means it takes longer to do that, and means the costs also go up as well. So, being able to work strategically with trust is really essential. And that's why, I'm now working with leaders as well and teaching them the neuroscience of trust, because there's so much research coming out, the latest research of how you can activate different parts of your brain. And when leaders understand and learn what they say and how they say it can have a different impact based on the words that they use, they can transform themselves into much stronger and better leaders, because they're able to build trust faster and maintain that level of trust. And again, I often talk on the individual level and the organizational level, and you can do this on both levels. So I guess my question really for you is, would your employees and coworkers consider you a trustworthy person? Are you someone who follows through? If you say you're going to do something, do you follow through and deliver on time? Are you someone who is open and vulnerable and that you can share? One of the worst things I think as any leader can possibly do is pretend that you know everything, because the bottom line is we don't. And if you can just share that, hey, maybe you have a good answer, you have a good idea, can you open up and be vulnerable to that? That's showing that you do trust people, when you can actually open yourself up to be vulnerable. So there's lots of different ways that you can work with trust. And I think building trust inside of an organization is really essential. And, we often look externally to the market with, the companies and how are we taking care of the customers and, all of those types of things. But the real question is, how are you taking care of people inside of the organization and internally? Because if you don't have that level of trust there, it's going to shine through, even if you think you've got a good window dressing through your communications or whatever. That's one of the things that I have found, when a company is incongruent with what their message is out to the market versus what they're saying internally. And, customers pick up on that. You don't have to say so much, but they just pick up on the feeling of that, actually. So it's really important. And I think in this day and age with technology, that's why we're heading so much towards transparency, is you can't hide that stuff anymore. So if you're not authentic to yourself or, as an organization internally, it's going to show out there, and you have to be aware of that. And this comes down again to that bottom line, underlying foundation of building trust inside of an organization. So just want you to think about this today and see in terms of, how much trust do you have? Do you feel you're in a trustworthy organization? If you're not, what can you do to increase the levels of trust? That's the one thing with trust, is that you can spend years building trust and having a great brand, and in 2 seconds it can be damaged or, completely annihilated just because of something was done wrong, or There's lots of case studies. I don't really like to focus on the negatives, so I won't go into those stories, but basically, a company can lose its trust very quickly by some off-the-cuff remark or by some action that was done that didn't take care of employees or wasn't in integrity. So think about that. You want to be, creating trust, building trust, and if you're interested in going deeper in terms of finding out the neuroscience of trust, come to Evolution and look at what we have to offer there. I write a lot about this, so you can check out my articles or get in touch with me and we can talk about how we can work with you and help you in that level as well. So anyway, the question I guess for today is, are you a trustworthy individual? Are you working with a trustworthy organization? And what can you do to even increase those levels of trust as well? So think about that, and good luck with it. And we'll be in touch again in the next video. Take care now. Bye-bye.